You became the father.
I'm being persecuted by everybody, it would seem.
When your children are bad, they go to the parent.
I have a firehouse full of maverick children who are very hard to control, and I guess the reason being because the head of the household is also maverick, so people come after it, which I don't mind because it leads to great storylines. I've had a great arc which I've just finished, and we're now into David's arc, which you're going to love because he's brilliant. But yeah, I think that they're just trying to do the stories that come up to make it interesting for people, and we can't do the same, just do fires. You have to get into us, and so outside forces creates drama for you. So hopefully you'll enjoy this version of the outside forces attacking us. Me in particular.
There's consequence in Chicago, because I think Chicago, I've spent 22 years in New York City. There's a New York way, and I've really come to find that there's a Chicago way. And as we know through the history of the aldermen and the 4 of the last governors that have ended up in prison, there's a difference here in Chicago of how to do things.
My hometown. Hold on.
It's your hometown?
Watch it.
No. I think it all leads.
We're gonna say what we're gonna say. You're gonna have to back up your town, because we ain't from here. Understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
I'm English, by the way.
But with that, the police commissioners, the fire commissioners, they haven't ended up in jail. But there is a Chicago way that things happen. Things happen when. I don't want to compare us.
Shy away from the truth.
Yeah, well, it was like on the television MASH. I'm not comparing it. There was a way to do it by the book, and then there was a way to do it to get it done, and to get it done the human way, and that goes against the bureaucracy of administrations and book writer or rule book writers, and they do that in Chicago. It's like, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to settle it, and the show has, on some levels, addressed that, for better or for worse, some of those elements. And I think they always lean towards the better. But there's a dark side to Chicago that I love, and it's darker than New York City. And I love New York. My family's all from there. But Chicago is a harder, tougher city than most of the cities that I've had personal experiences in. And I love it about Chicago. Chicago, Nelson Ogren, who's one of my favorite writers, was like, falling in love with Chicago is like loving a beautiful woman with a broken nose. And I'm paraphrasing that quote. If you want to get it right, you have to look it up. But loving Chicago is loving of a woman with a busted nose. And I love that. My wife's nose is crooked too. So.
The dark side, a little bit more about the dark side that you like, and why do you like it?
I mean, the history of Chicago. History started out as a transit city that nobody in their right mind would have come to. It was at the end of up the Hudson, through the canals, through the Great Lakes, here and hooking up to the Mississippi. And you had to be hard and ugly to start out here, and that was where the Chicago started. And it was hookers and criminals and tradespeople, and it was hard. And that element has softened over the years. But I mean, that's what happened. I mean, there's been hard elements of Chicago from the beginning, and it's the weather here is brutal. It's different. It's a little bit harder than Toronto. I think you send it down here south, and it gets wetter and colder.
You send all of it.
But you guys are smarter because you built half your city under the city, whereas Chicago doesn't have an underground.
Well, you got transit though, you have rails. It's better than Toronto, and a nice waterfront. Whereabouts are you from in the UK?
I'm a Londoner.
London? Do you have any insight into how a fire captain operates in London? Like, is it that different?
I keep, when I go home, there's my local fire station in Harlesden. I drive past, and I keep thinking to myself, should I just walk in there? And I never do. So I don't actually know how they operate. But I was in Trinidad and feeling rather happy, and did walk in. And when I walked in just to ask a few questions, thinking, then they wouldn't have seen the show. And they all went, Chief is in the house! And I went, oh God. So I got completely shown around. everything. And what I realized is it's pretty much the same type of people that do that type of job all over the world. So I'm imagining, although I didn't do it in London, because I saw what happened in Trinidad, I saw the equipment, I met the people, I saw the pride, I felt them wanting to help people, especially, out of fire, wanting to help children. There wasn't a little bit of the adrenaline junkie in there too. All the same elements were there, and it's a completely different country. So I imagine it's the same. I've been very lucky. I had Steve Chikalotis as the chief that I could pull everything from, and he left me with a Driscoll, the chief who drove me around every day, who I could bombard questions from. He's now retired, Driscoll, but I've been really lucky the people I've been speaking to. And what happens to us, the new fire people come along is they go, that bit, or when you did that, that was really reflective of a story that kind of happened to me. And that lets me know that we're not too far away from the truth, albeit within the framework of television.
One thing for the both of you two together is you see in the show how the professional, the personal, and the political, like all intertwine kind of so seamlessly. How important is that to the narrative, like shaping the narrative of a city like Chicago and how people look at it, but also how people look at law enforcement, the fire department, the justice system now today? Like how important is Chicago?
I think it's really important because Chicago is a character in every single one of these shows. You won't see it so much in Med because they're inside a lot. But Chicago, one of the things that you're always going to see, whether it's ED, fire, or whatever, or Med, and they will do this, is you're going to see the Sears building, you're going to see the roads, you're going to see the traffic, you're going to hear the politics, Chicago is a big part of it, and those politics, those people, whether they be hard or soft, Chicago is the start of all three of us. And that's why the biggest letters are Chicago. So is it important? Really, really important. And there's so many stories that we can tell. Truth of the matter is we've just begun. So 4 years in, we've just begun. That sounds weird.
I mean, when you see the agendas though, like how they play out, like you think you have a job to do, but you're also worried about your political positioning, but you're also battling things in your personal life, and everybody's going through those same three kind of struggles, So like showing that side of it, because I think a lot of times people will look at it like, a police officer's job is to be the police officer, the fireman, but you're seeing it all kind of play out in a way, like when you think The Wire and how you're seeing the back end of a city like Baltimore,
right,
everybody knows.
Yeah.
Like how is that shaping the narrative about a city like Chicago that seemed like a Baltimore, like a New York City in a lot of people's eyes?
Well, I think that question is for yourself, really, about how you receive it.
Right.
Because the writers who are putting that out, when they take that on board, it's because they're being fed certain stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot that they go, oh, we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, because there is an overseeing idea of the level, because we're not The Wire, and we're not on HBO, we're on NBC, so all those things kind of matter. And I think we touch on subjects a lot. I just don't know how deep we really go into the politics, or why certain politicians end up in jail, or why there's certain shootings of young children in the street. But we've touched on that. I mean, one of our most famous episodes, I think, is when a child died. He wasn't shot, but stuff happens to children in this town. One of the people who care most for the first responders, they're the ones who get there first, and they take it on board and they wear that away before the people get it in the news. So I think when you get a chance to ask the writers, ask them, but it's more a question for yourself of when you watch the show, how much of it do you see and how much of it can you relate to?
So going off the politics tip, we've had some situations with Riddle and Patterson who is getting increasingly more annoying.
Wow, look at you! Don't you sit on that fence.
Can you sort of preview the drama with those two characters ahead? So
Yeah, the two guys who are coming at me. I do feel like it's coming from all sides. Riddle is a fantastic foil, played by Fred. It's hard to say because I've enjoyed working with the actors so much. And when I'm in Bowden mode, I hate him. I love the actor, but Bowden doesn't like him very much. And Patterson is a much more complicated relationship. And so Patterson is actually a friend of Bowden outside of the firehouse. So the stuff that's going on between them, there's an awful lot that's not said with the lines of, why are you being like that? I'm not going to talk about it right now because we have people in front of us, but you're being a bit of a dick, I think. But I won't pull you out on it, you know, and that kind of comes up. And some of the answers are actually in PD, as opposed to, which is why it gets convoluted and complicated. For me, it's great stuff to play. I've been stretched with the writing this year. I've had a really, really good time. That particular arc for me is over, and you have yet to see it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Can you talk a little bit about the escalation? We're going to kind of see, like, tease a little bit.
You want me to give away some stuff, don't you? Okay. Well, where you are right now is the very, very beginning, and I can tell you it gets very, 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 very dark. It's very dark. It gets, I think it's one of the darkest we've ever gone on the show, and one of the most real. You know, still not The Wire. We're not in Baltimore, but we get pretty real, and Bowden goes there. It's taken there, and it's the politics that take him there. God, don't give it away. Oh God. But yes, sexual politics come into it. Racial politics come into it, and we explore them. Yeah, I don't want to give it to you. I'm sorry, you're not going to watch it.
I don't know if the audience picks up, because I don't hear it a lot, but what the writers did in the creation of our show is that sometimes typically when you have an ensemble as large as ours, you usually have a stitched-in character that everybody cringes, but as a series regular. But what they did on our show was everybody has our own liabilities and character defects, but there are no, for lack of a better word, there are no assholes in our ensemble, which we don't have as human beings also. So, and what the great asset of that kind of writing is that person, if you have it, becomes a two-dimensional character almost always. Because it's hard to keep that person stitched in without them being the guy that's always just constantly doing the things that they do. And when we have our show, we brought in these characters, which actually I think, because they're outside coming in, can be more three-dimensional in their attack because they're passing through.
It's not necessarily an attack. It may be perceived as an attack by us.
But there are people with agendas, because our characters on our show, which I think is an asset, we don't have agendas other than to take care of each other and find the best way and to guide each other, which I think adds another element to the show, which I think is heartwarming, but I hope is humane.
Can you guys talk a little bit about the collaborative episodes that are coming up now that that is really, and like any relationships that are going to see?
Oh, you want more relationships? You don't have enough relationships?
How it changes now that we have them.
I'm half deaf, so repeat part of the question.
What it's been like having the new collaborative episodes now that Men is officially involved too. The ones that we're going to see in January. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, there's somewhat of the obvious that, you know, that we're going to lay over when people are in danger and people are hurt, and we'll be stitched over. What I found that Dick Wolf is really trying to make is that in between departments of the different elements of the first responders, because we're kind of like the tech end of Chicago Med, although it is stitched into the advisors who are hands-on in Cook County Hospital here, which is one of the, Well, it is the busiest hospital facility in the nation, and they have such an influx of people that it's mind-bending how many people that they process on a daily and a monthly basis, and they have those people. So that's a county, city, it's a city element, and there's stitching in the camaraderie is too thin of a word, but and admiration is wrong also, but it just how they're all interconnected and they actually give a crap about what each other does, and we're all gonna fly with that. I
The
think
other
there's
thing is, what you would have just started to notice is his bar is where PD, med, and fire, they all go together. So some of those relationships will be built over alcohol, and quite rightly too, because these people deal with stressful lives. And so one of the ones I will give away is Elias's character. This is good. I've forgotten Elias's character. But Elias and his character and Bowden have known each other for a lot of years. You don't know this until you see them in the bar, and there's a shared history. In a very small scene, you see people dealing with stress. So that's one relationship that you didn't know about, that you get given. But you see it in PD, you might not see it in fire. You've got Ollie will be coming from med, and he'll come to the bar and he'll have a drink and he'll talk to him, and Paper will come. So that Molly's bar now is a place where you can really see us kind of going throughout the 3 different shows, which I think is a fantastic idea. He's spent a lot of time working with med, so has Kara. The police, the medical world, and the fire department see each other every single day. And I think that relationship, regardless of the characters, is what you're going to be drawing upon. Because when they pull them out of the fire, they put them with the paramedics who take them to the hospital. So it's a real natural progression, right? And then if something's up, and in one of the stories, well, several of the stories already on PD, something's already been up. Somebody's been murdered, or it doesn't seem right, and so that gives PD an element, not just to kind of police the area, but to start investigating about what the hell happened. And so that's another element that you're going to see. So this Chicago world, Chicago land, albeit they're all separate, they're all together, and that's